Well, thank you so much for joining us. Edison's going to kick off our first talk here for the night. So without further ado, give it up for Edison.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I'm excited to be here. Like you said, my name is Edison, and I work with CodeWits. The goal is to train 100,000 entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, in the next 10 years. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we can go straight at this. All right. So, first step for me would be to explain just in 2 minutes what style components, why style components, and what is style components. So basically, I'm sure you're familiar with what CSS in JavaScript is. And I realized that, coming into the JavaScript world, I was very familiar with CSS. And I realized if I want to do CSS in JavaScript, I need to have two files, JSX file. But then style components is one of the things that made that really exciting for me, that I could do that, all of that in one, and have to create one of the things I find amazing.
Edison, I think you're cutting out just a little bit here. Let me see if I don't, is there, can you check your connection? It sounds like we can hear you half the time, but then you're cutting out a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
That's all good. All right. Yes. Awesome. So, for me, it's the fact that it's easy to read and I don't have to make too many HTTP requests when I want to load assets or resources. Makes it very easy. Makes it very interesting for me. So let's just go straight to do this practically. First step for me was to to create React app. I did that so that we don't have to waste time, since we don't have too much time. So basically that was, npx create React app styling, and then that was to create the React app. And then I installed style component. Show you that right here. So that's basically npm install -- save style components. So I installed style component here. Once that is done, and then I started the server, and that's what you have here. So the server looks just like this. One second, just like this. And then we want to start writing the codes, right? So first step was to take off, maybe delete app text, the JS, because we don't need that. And app in app.css away.
Sorry, Edison. I think we're losing you again. We had you good for a while there. We can't hear you at all right now. I don't know if you could hear us.
Okay, is this better now?
Got you. Yeah, we could hear you so far.
All right. This is terrible. Sorry about that. The internet in this part of the world can be really slow. I'm not sure why. Can you hear me?
We could hear you. Thanks for bearing through this with us.
All right. Okay, so I'll just do it. If you can't hear me, you can also just follow through and see what I'm doing. Maybe that would help as well. So I'm just going to take out everything here and save. And then now we can start to write imports. We've already installed style components, so we can now start to import style from style components. And then, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm just checking.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, awesome. And then let's say we want to work on buttons. So we just want to create a styling. Maybe let's work with the HTML first, the JSX first. So we have a simple button. Okay, and let's call this sign up. And we want to be able to style this. The reason why I'm using the capital B is that with JSX and with style components, you're better off using like capital letters as that first letter. And so if I want to style this, I can put this in a function, in and say const button equals, and I have to call styled, but with an HTML element. So any HTML element I want, in this case, I want button. And then I want to use the back tag, back tick. So I write all my styling here. I can do any kind of CSS here. So if you already know CSS, everything else you're doing inside this is basically just writing CSS. So if I want background color, for instance, I can say background color, just for simplicity, is blue. What else do we want? I can say border. It typically comes with a border, so we can say border none because we don't want a border. And then um, I can just save this. So basically, what I'm calling here is in the const button. Every styling here will be attached to this button sign up. If this is a small b, it won't work because this is the typical HTML button. But in this case, we're putting all of these elements, everything that you have here, inside the const button. So let's see if we can view it. Okay, but as that is loading, I mean, so that's first step really in trying to use style components is basically saying you're styling a button. We could do this for different things. We could do this for like nav bar, just basically how you use your typical CSS. Another thing that I think is really, really cool about style components is being able to do dynamic styling. So because React already works with states and props, you can actually call down a particular prop and say, just like you have in like Bootstrap or Material CSS or MDB React or different kinds of framework, you can actually call down props. An example is if you want to have a button that is primary and you want to have a secondary button, we can actually do that as well. To do that, I can comment this out. Okay, to do that, I would say, for instance, if it was the background color, but then I want to call the props. I can do JavaScript. I can write any JavaScript code, and I can do that using the $sign. And then I call in props. And then I use the arrow function. And then say, in this case, I'm going to use a ternary operator. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. So I'll say props.primary. As an example, that I want this is going to be my primary color. If it is a primary color, please give me maybe a red. Else, if it's not primary color, give me let me see, pink or orange or yellow. Okay, let's say yellow. So that is if I want to call the props. Now, how do I use it? I just come here simply and say in button and just say primary as an example, because if I don't put this here, what would happen is that I won't get a red, I will get yellow. So if I don't have, if I want this to be a red, I'll have to call in button primary, and that would be a red. Let's just check if my, sorry. Okay, it's just hard to show. The internet is not working here. But I mean, basically that's kind of like one of the ideas of calling in props in your styling, and which makes it very dynamic because then I can do a lot of different things. I mean, basically because you can write JavaScript, um, codes in CSS. I mean, style components allow you to be able to use your JavaScript to do a lot of CSS styling. So if you can write typical CSS, you're fine, but then it gives you, it's almost like CSS on steroids for me. So and other things you could do is also like things you can do in Sass, like basically like pseudo classes. So if I want to use like an over button, for instance, you can do that as well here in the button. So if I want it to be an over button, I can do that. I think finally also you can have themes. I think style components allow you to have themes. And so if I want to have a theme, like I want to be able to reuse a particular theme, I can do that with style components. So an example of that is that I wouldn't just call styled, it would be import styled, but I would also import something else. It's like I'm deconstructing the entire style component. Inside style component, it is called a theme provider. So I would have theme provider. But then I would have to use it. I mean, I'm sure by now you're familiar with the fact that once you have imported something, you would have to use it. And to be able to do that, first step is that I need to wrap everything I want here. So I can say theme provider. I can say theme provider and then theme. Right. And then I need to create a theme. So theme provider. Theme. And then close it. So in this case, I've imported theme provider and I need to close it. So return and then right after the div, I need to close it, but then I have not created a theme. I have not created that theme. This is just basically importing the theme and putting it in JSX, but it's nowhere in my code. So I need to create that. So let's say we put it here. So I say const theme. Sorry, this would be theme. So const theme equals, and this is like an object in JavaScript. So it follows basically how objects work in JavaScript. So primary, for instance, if I want my primary to be purple, and then I want my secondary, if I want a secondary color. So basically this is just creating themes, like creating objects, and I can reuse them. And I can call this blue, as an example. And let's say I want, so basically we can even just leave it at that, just because, you know, what am I doing wrong here? Return theme provider. Oh, theme equals, sorry, I didn't see that. Theme equals theme. So basically what this, now I need to use it. Like in this case, I'm not necessarily calling the theme. I've not used it anywhere. So how do I use it? As I try and wrap this up, I need to, wherever I want to use it. So in this case, I'm using it in the button. So I can change the background color here to become something that I'm using theme provider for. So I will change almost everything inside here to be props theme. So I just move everything here. Everything here will become props and then dot theme and then dot primary. So I'm basically just calling the primary color. And so I can reuse these themes. I can do that for different things. Like I can create an H1 element and then create a theme for it. And then, I mean, style components is really, really cool. I used to use a lot of frameworks. Like my favorite was MDB React. But as soon as I started to work around style components, I love CSS. So it was very easy for me to like navigate and be able to work with style components. So basically that's, my internet is really, really slow. So it's making it very difficult to do some things right now, but I don't know if this was helpful, but basically this is like a little bit of introduction. I can just do like a quick recap. Style components basically is npm install dash dash save style components. And if you want to use it, you need to import style from style components. And then you can do very, very, very many things with it. You can actually also pass down variables with style components. You can create themes using theme provider, and you can do a lot of dynamic stuff with props using and passing down props to state using style components. I think that's it for me. Sorry about the slow internet, but yeah,
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edison. Once we sort of got rolled in there, the connection was fine. So thanks for sticking with us on that. Everyone, give it up for Edison. I don't know if you can hear the applause, but it's thunderous.
I can. Yeah, but forgive me, guys. The internet is terrible. I feel so bad, but
Edison,
I hope it was,
before we finish up with your talk, can you sort of can you just like give us a little introduction to yourself, where we can find you online? I see that you're the founder of CodeWit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so to start with, I am also like the Founder Institute local director in Ghana. So Founder Institute was started in Silicon Valley. I'm sure you know about it. It's a pre-seed accelerator, it's the largest in the world. Also run CodeWit, and CodeWit is a tech accelerator. So we give people training. So we want to do 50,000 to 100,000 in the next 10 years. We're currently present in 3 countries. And so what we do is train people on web development, basically full stack development, to like Python for data science, to artificial intelligence. And they don't have to pay a dime to do it. We sponsor them, and then when they get a job, and then we kind of get paid back. But the goal is to make as much people as possible that kind of afford it to do it. You can find me on Twitter at Buzz Edison, BUZZEDISON, and on LinkedIn as well, basically.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And both of those links are on the React meetup page. So check that out. All right. Thank you, Edison.
Thank you.